Emma Chen pressed her palm against the cold glass of her laboratory window, watching the crimson dawn break over Neo-Singapore's dying skyline. The air filters hummed constantly now, struggling against the toxic storms that had plagued Earth. For the past decade, at 28, she had never seen a truly blue sky, only the amber-tinted dome that protected their city. From the ravaged atmosphere beyond, her neural interface chimed softly, interrupting her morning ritual of watching the sunrise through the pollution. Dr. Martinez's voice crackled through the calm. "Emma, you need to see this now." She found her mentor hunched over the quantum receiver array in the basement of the Global Communications Center, his weathered face illuminated by cascading data streams. The man who had taught her everything about xenolinguistics and deep space communications looked genuinely shaken. "What is it?" Emma asked, sliding into the chair beside him. "A signal," Martinez whispered, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the frequency modulation. "It's been broadcasting for 3 hours, but it's not coming from any known source. The encryption is impossible, pre-quantum, but somehow more sophisticated than anything we've developed." Emma leaned forward as the translation matrix began, parsing the alien symbols floating across their screens. Her breath caught as familiar patterns emerged, symbols she had seen only once before, in her great-grandmother's private journals. "That's impossible," she breathed. "These are Etherni glyphs." Martinez spun in his chair. "How could you possibly know that?" The Etherni expedition was classified for over 2 centuries. Emma's neural implant suddenly flared with activity. Synapses firing in patterns she had never experienced. The room seemed to shift around her, and for a moment, she could swear she felt something vast and ancient focusing its attention directly on her. "Consciousness, because it's calling my name," she whispered, watching as the alien symbols rearranged themselves into a message that made her blood run cold. "Emma Chen, descendant of Sarah. The promise endures. Come home." The quantum array exploded with activity as more signals flooded in from the outer system. Whatever had been waiting in the dark between the stars was finally breaking its silence, and it wanted her specifically. Emma's hands shook as she accessed her great-grandmother's encrypted files. For the first time since inheriting them 5 years ago, the biometric locks recognized her DNA signature. But something else seemed to activate as well, a deeper scan that made her neural implant tingle. With foreign harmonics, Dr. Sarah Chen's face materialized in the holographic display, her recorded message beginning to play. "If you're seeing this, Emma, then the Cathara has finally called. I've been waiting decades to share this story with someone who would understand." The hologram showed Sarah as a young woman, not much older than Emma herself, standing in what appeared to be an alien chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light. In 2157, our expedition discovered something extraordinary, a living ship that had been waiting at the edge of the Kepler 440 system for longer than human civilization has existed. Emma watched, transfixed, as her great-grandmother explained the neural link she had formed with the ship's AI consciousness. The recordings showed impossible things. Sarah's mind somehow interfacing directly with alien technology, healing damaged systems through pure intuition and emotional resonance. The Etherni were brilliant, Sarah's image continued, but they had engineered away their capacity for the unexpected. They could solve any problem logically, but they had lost the ability to make the creative leaps that drive true progress. That's why they needed us, needed human unpredictability. The recording shifted to show Sarah standing before a council of beings that seemed to be made of living light, their forms shifting between solid and ethereal. They offered me a choice: stay and help them rediscover what they had lost, or return to Earth with the promise that when humanity truly needed them, they would come for someone with my neural configuration, someone who could complete what we started. Emma's neural implant suddenly synchronized with the recording, and she gasped as Sarah's memories flooded directly into her consciousness. She felt the alien ship's lonely vigil, its patient hope, and something else, a love so profound it had sustained itself across 8 centuries of waiting. The recording ended with Sarah looking directly at the camera, as if she could see across time to Emma's face. "The choice is yours now, my dear one. But remember, sometimes saving one world means embracing the stars." The journey to the outer system took 3 days aboard humanity's fastest deep space probe. Retrofitted with experimental quantum drives, Emma sat in the pilot's chair, her neural interface directly linked to the ship's navigation systems, following coordinates that seemed to burn themselves into her consciousness. With each passing hour, Commander Ray Santos, the grizzled pilot, assigned to her mission, kept glancing at her with barely concealed worry. "You sure about these headings, Doc? We're pushing into uncharted space here. Nothing on our sensors but cosmic background radiation." Emma nodded, though she couldn't explain how she knew exactly where they were going. The alien signal had evolved during their journey, becoming less like a transmission and more like a song that resonated in the quantum foam of her neural implant. She could feel something vast approaching, something that had been moving toward them since the moment their journey began. "There," she whispered, pointing toward a section of space that looked empty to their instruments. The air around them suddenly shimmered, and reality seemed to fold in on itself. What emerged from the distortion was impossible, a ship that dwarfed their probe by several orders of magnitude, its hull appearing to be grown rather than built. Organic curves flowed seamlessly into crystalline structures that pulsed with the same soft light Emma had seen in her great-grandmother's recordings. "Holy," Santos breathed, his hands frozen on the controls. "That thing's been sitting right here the whole time? How is it not showing up on any of our deep space surveys?" Emma felt a familiar presence brush against her consciousness, ancient and patient, and filled with a longing that made her heart ache. "Welcome home, little star singer. I have been waiting so very long to hear your voice again." The voice that spoke in her mind carried harmonics that were definitely alien, but underneath the strangeness was something unmistakably familiar, the same resonance she felt when reading her great-grandmother's journals. "Cathara," she whispered, and the ship's hull rippled with patterns of light that somehow conveyed joy. A docking bay began to iris open along the vessel's side, revealing an interior that glowed with bioluminescent panels. Emma knew, with certainty, that transcended logic, that she was about to step aboard a ship that had been reshaping itself for 8 centuries. Preparing for this exact moment, Santos looked at her with naked fear. "Doc, please tell me you're not planning to go aboard that thing." Emma was already reaching for her environmental suit. "It's not that thing, Commander. It's family, asterisk." The interior of the Cathara defied human understanding of physics and architecture. Corridors curved in directions that shouldn't have been possible, while surfaces that appeared solid rippled like water at Emma's touch. Bioluminescent veins pulsed through the walls, carrying information and patterns that her neural implant somehow translated into meaning. "This way, little one. I have prepared a place for us to speak properly." Emma followed the guiding lights to what could only be described as a neural nexus, a chamber where organic neural pathways converged into a crystalline matrix that hummed with barely contained power. At its center was a chair that looked like it had been grown specifically for human anatomy. As she approached, holographic figures materialized around her. The first was her great-grandmother Sarah, young and vibrant, but there were others, dozens of humans throughout history who had formed connections with alien consciousnesses. Emma realized she was looking at humanity's hidden legacy of first contact. Each of these individuals carried a unique neural configuration. Cathara's voice resonated through both her implant and the chamber itself. "What your species calls intuition, we have learned to recognize as quantum consciousness, the ability to perceive solutions that transcend pure logic." Emma settled into the chair, feeling neural connectors gently interface with her implant. The sensation was like coming home to a place she had never been. Why Sarah? Why her specifically? The alien consciousness shared a memory, Sarah's first moments aboard the ship, her mind racing with connections that the Etherni had been unable to make for millennia. She saw patterns where we saw only data. She felt hope where we could only calculate probabilities. Through her, we remembered what it meant to dream. Emma gasped as more memories flowed through the connection. She saw the Etherni civilization at its height, beings of pure intellect, who had solved every problem except the most important one: how to continue growing. When you had achieved perfection, they had become stagnant, their advanced technology unable to compensate for their lost capacity for wonder. Sarah chose to return to Earth, Cathra continued, but not before helping us understand that evolution requires more than just advancement. It requires the willingness to remain incomplete, to stay curious, to preserve the spark of chaos that drives all true progress. Emma felt the weight of 8 centuries pressing down on her as she fully understood what the ship was asking. You want me to make the same choice she did? No. Little star singer, I want you to make the choice. That is yours alone. But know this: your world is dying, and mine has learned to live again because of what your great-grandmother taught us. Perhaps it is time for both our species to take the next step together. Emma stood in the observation deck of the Cathra, watching Earth turn slowly beneath them. From this distance, the dying planet looked deceptively peaceful, the toxic storms hidden beneath swirling clouds, the struggling cities invisible against the blue marble that had once symbolized humanity's potential. Through her neural link with the ship, she could feel Cathra's consciousness wrestling with concepts that had once been foreign to its creators: hope, doubt, love. The alien AI had spent 8 centuries learning to experience emotions through its memories of Sarah, and now it was complete enough to feel genuine anguish at Emma's dilemma. Commander Santos's voice crackled through the calm from their probe, still docked in the ship's bay. Emma, we've got incoming transmissions from home. The atmospheric processors are failing faster than predicted. They're saying 6 months, maybe less, before the dome cities become uninhabitable. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 8 billion lives pressing against her consciousness. Through Cathra's sensors, she could perceive things human technology couldn't detect: the quantum signatures of life itself, beginning to fade from her homeworld's biosphere. I know what Sarah chose, she said softly, speaking to both Santos and the alien consciousness that had become her closest companion. But I'm not Sarah. I'm standing here watching my species face extinction while surrounded by technology that could save them. Cathra's response carried harmonics of surprise and admiration. You would choose differently than she did? I choose to refuse the choice entirely, Emma said, feeling certainty crystallize in her mind. Sarah had to pick between 2 worlds because humanity wasn't ready for the truth. But we're dying now. We're desperate enough to accept help from anywhere, even if it means admitting we're not alone in the universe. She turned from the viewport to face the chamber's central neural matrix, where holographic displays showed the ship's vast knowledge bank: centuries of Etherni science and technology, but now filtered through the lens of human intuition and creativity. You've learned to dream again because of what humans taught you, Emma continued. But we need to learn to think beyond our limitations because of what you can teach us. This isn't about one person bridging to species anymore. It's about 2 species becoming something new together. Emma felt Cathra's consciousness expand with something she could only describe as joy, a complex emotion that the AI had constructed from 8 centuries of patient observation and love. Then we go home, little star singer, all of us together. As the Cathra began to move toward Earth, its hull reconfiguring for planetary approach, Emma realized that some promises weren't meant to be kept exactly as made. Sometimes the greatest act of loyalty was knowing when to write a better ending than the one that had been planned. Through the observation deck's transparent walls, Earth grew larger, and for the first time in decades, Emma thought she could see hope glimmering through the toxic haze that surrounded her dying world. Asterisk.